Hi everyone, Shannon Petrovich with Therapist Talks. Today we're talking about trauma, part 2. This is about triggers, your monkey mind, your wise mind, and how not to act like a monkey. In this video, we'll talk about how trauma gets stuck in our reactive monkey mind and then can be triggered by anything that reminds us of that trauma, giving us a rush of adrenaline, the same thing that happened when we experienced that trauma. And we'll talk about how to resolve trauma reactions, triggers, and those flashbacks. Quick review of trauma part 1. Trauma is anything that gives you a feeling of overwhelm and powerlessness. We talked about the adrenaline that floods the system, which gives us the power to fight, flight, or freeze. In the wild, at the moment before a gazelle is eaten by a lion, the body goes into a complete freeze and she's almost paralyzed. But she's also almost completely numb, which is probably a good thing. If the lion is somehow interrupted and doesn't kill the gazelle, she jumps up and has what almost looks like a seizure. She shakes it off and runs back to the herd. The important aspects of this include 1, that we get that rush of adrenaline. 2, that feeling of paralysis is real, so you're never to blame for not fighting hard enough. 3, when the trauma is over, we're left with a buildup of chemicals in our brain that we're supposed to shake off, but we usually don't. And 4, and this is where we diverge from the rest of the animal kingdom, our human mind tries to make sense of our trauma, and these stories are what last a lifetime unless we sort them out. Inside the brain is a little walnut-sized thing called the amygdala. It's our reactive survival part of our brain, and since it's the same as our monkey cousins, I call it the monkey mind. A lot of folks call it the lizard brain, but I like monkey mind because it describes better a lot of what goes on in there. Regular stresses of the day are supposed to be processed from that place through our upper cortex, which is our judgment centers or our wise mind, and then put away in the back library of our memory bank. A trauma, by definition, overwhelms the system, doesn't ever process, and is continuously stuck in that monkey mind, able to be triggered. When triggered, that monkey mind goes off like it's in survival mode. The rush of adrenaline makes us want to fight, flight, or freeze, and we react like it just happened right now. So examples are a woman waiting tables, smells the same cologne her rapist wore, and she rushes into the back room with the reaction like she's being chased. A child who's been abused reacts to all authority with rage and rebellion or passivity and shaking like a leaf. Or a man abandoned as a child can't tolerate any closeness without feeling a complete terror of abandonment, so much so that it's intolerable. Many of these people may describe their symptoms as panic attacks, anxiety attacks, or freaking out. All of it's a trauma reaction. So why is this important to distinguish? Well, sadly, no amount of anti-anxiety meds can take this away until you get the help and work it through. So if you think of it just as anxiety attacks or panic attacks and you just take meds and don't get the help, you'll never heal from that underlying trauma. So you've got to heal from the underlying trauma and deconstruct the triggers from your everyday life. So how do people heal from trauma? Talking can help a lot because the story is as re-traumatizing as the memory itself. So let's remember back to our cognitive behavioral therapy video. These stories are stuck at the time of the trauma. A lot of times people will say, I didn't fight hard enough. I've actually counseled people who realized that they were only half the size of their perpetrator and they could see in their adult selves that there's no way they could have fought back. But they had lodged that self-blame inside themselves their entire lives. Oftentimes they would have endangered themselves further by fighting, and they realize that. Also remember that freeze mode is real. You can't fight when you're frozen. Another story is I didn't protect my sister when he came after her. Again, you didn't have power, and you are never to blame for someone else's actions. Another story is it was my fault. I was too cute as a child. My parents' divorce was my fault. I was too difficult as a child. Again, someone else's behavior is never your fault. I made her mad, or I was a terrible kid, and that's why she screamed at me and called me names and hit me so much. Well, it's our job as kids to push the boundaries in order to explore our world. That's not a reason to hit and tear down the tender psyche of a child. Dislodging that story is only half the battle. The other half is disconnecting the triggers and dissipating those chemical reactions or that energy. This is very simple in concept and very hard to accomplish. So the concept is to be a separate witness to yourself. I know that sounds weird, but think of it as having your wise mind keep watch over that monkey mind. So in your wise mind, you can see that your boss is chewing you out for something you messed up. And it's just something you have to sit through, listen, glean what you can so you don't mess that up again. In your monkey mind, though, you feel like you're being destroyed by your raging critical mother, and your fear reaction is causing you to want to fight, flight, or freeze. As you sit through this, you could talk to yourself with your wise mind, telling yourself, calm down, you're all right, yeah, you messed up, it's not the end of the world, this too shall pass, listen, learn, calm down. While your monkey mind is trying to go crazy and freak out. So in the past, you might have flown off the handle, flipped out, quit your job. But today, you can talk to yourself and talk yourself out of that reaction. Walk through it with dignity and resilience. The energy in your body will still be on reactive mode, so you have to breathe deeply and slowly. And when it's over, you probably have to go for a walk to get rid of that energy so you don't go back to your desk and freak out on someone else. This can also happen when interacting with your friends. If your monkey mind is getting triggered into feeling afraid of abandonment, you can end up being reactive and ruining that friendship. Using your wise mind, again, you can self-calm and self-talk and recognize that your friends have friends too, and them spending time with other friends is not discounting you, and then you can ride that out. On a deeper level, if you're a victim of abuse and your spouse triggers you whenever you have a disagreement, your monkey mind goes off into fight, flight, or freeze, you can again use your wise mind to talk to and calm down that monkey mind. Telling yourself, breathe, it's okay, he's not trying to hurt you, we're just disagreeing on this one thing. He's not going to abandon you or blow up. This self-talk can help so much. And even more so if you can share this with your spouse and they can see that when you have disagreements, you need it to be as neutral in intensity as possible. In other words, preemptively tell your spouse, hey, I'm easily triggered by intensity and anger, so when we disagree, it'll be a lot more productive if we can sit down and calmly address things. When you get angry or intense, it all goes south for me and it's a mess. If you need to take several timeouts and keep coming back to a conversation, that's much better than having your two monkey minds go at it in survival mode, fighting, flighting, and freezing all over each other. That's just insanity. Everything that you say and do in that mode is destructive. So, just the knowledge that there are these two parts of our mind takes the power out of that monkey mind to run the show. One way to help people see this more clearly is by recognizing these survival mechanisms and reactions are really important if it's a survival situation. But when we let these intense reactions run our everyday lives, it's like letting that monkey drive your bus. He's cute and all, but you don't want him at the wheel of your bus. He'll drive it right off a cliff. And if you think about the times that you've let that happen and the destruction that's ensued, and even think about people in your life that are very reactive. They're letting their monkey mind drive their bus. This can help you to stay out of the way of these reactions in someone else. When someone's going off, think of it as their reaction that they may or may not understand. Stay out of the way and don't take it personally. It's more about them than you. Sometimes just talking these things through helps a lot. We've lodged these old stories deep in our beings by the time we're 5 years old. And recognizing the difference between responding from our wise mind versus reacting from our monkey mind helps us live our lives more sanely. But other times we have to process those old connections through deep therapy and EMDR and other trauma therapies. If you need that, I recommend EMDR's primary website, EMDRIA. That's the International Association of EMDR, and you can find a therapist near you. Get help and keep getting help until you feel better. Remember, you survived the trauma. That's so important. You survived the trauma. Don't let it live inside you, renting free space in your brain and body for the rest of your life. You're worth it. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe on YouTube, and leave me a comment or a question or a suggestion for future videos. Thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you again soon.